Hello and welcome to Wordfish, the podcast all about writing for children. In today's programme we're looking at spelling and we have some poetry, a guest spot with Neve, book recommendations and a new feature called Right Now. But first a poem, The Spelling Test. Okay children, it's time for the spelling test. Remember, no talking. If I see you talking, I will tear up your paper for cheating. Susan, what did I just say? That's right. No talking. Question 1. Success. Success. Remember my clue? 2 cuffs, 2 sleeves. Michael, are you paying attention?
I am a soaring bird in the sky, dragon winged tail make me fly. A knight in armour rides my back, blazing sword how high for attack.
Okay, question 2. Necessary. Necessary. Here's the clue. 1 cup, 2 sugars. Remember that? 1 cup, 2 sugars. Michael, have you got number 1 done yet?
The princess waits in her tower, walls of vine and flower. A witch chains her to a bed, cackling loudly, making dread.
Michael, you haven't even started. How do you expect to write if you can't spell? Now that poem was influenced by Michael Rosen. Michael Rosen is a well-known poet and writer. He writes a lot of conversational poetry. Conversational poetry is when you write in the style of dialogue. Now that particular poem is easier to understand if you see it written on a page, which you can do if you go to my website stephenfitzsimons.com. About spelling. I'm sorry to say, but often spelling gets in the way of a good story writing, along with handwriting. Parents panic about it, pointing out any simple errors to their children. Teachers fret about it because it can influence assessment scores. This is bad. By all this panic and fretting, you get very worried. You begin to believe that spelling and handwriting make a good story. That any story where it's a bit wobbly is not a good story. Wrong! When a writer is writing their story for the first time, called a first draft, there's only one thing they were worried about: getting to the end of the story. That's right. You should only worry about getting your ideas down, following your characters as they go on their adventure in whatever world or place you have put them in. That doesn't mean writers ignore spelling, punctuation and that grammar stuff. It just means we check it all when we do a second draft. That's a time to fix that. And handwriting? Well, a published work should be readable. But you only worry about that at the very end. And you could always use a computer. So stop worrying for now about that spelling and punctuation stuff. Sit down, dream, and get that story down to the end. And have fun. Okay, now it's the part of the podcast where I talk to a young writer, and I'm glad to say I'm welcoming back a writer we've had on before, Neve. Hello, Neve.
Hi.
And Neve, today the programme's all about spelling. Now, I know you write stories called the Mr. Smith Adventures, and I'm wondering what you do about spelling when you're writing your stories.
Well, I can't spell. Simple as. I just don't even care about it. Even in school, I'm just like, spelling goes over my head. So when I come to stories, I usually type it on the computer because it's simpler, though I do prefer writing. I usually type on the computer because it's faster and you can get all your ideas as they're coming through with a piece of paper on the side. And while I'm going through, let's say, first word that comes to my head, can. Okay, I can spell can. But let's say if I spelled it like con. So when writing through, the computer would check it, and then what I do is I just edit it as it goes along because the computer tells me what's wrong.
So you use the computer to tell you as you go along, but let's say you didn't have the computer and you had to write on paper. What would you do about spelling then?
Well, then, let's say I did it in school. Then when I handed it in, I would get it back with loads of spelling mistakes, which I probably would have never checked, because I think it's more important, just like, no one cares about spelling. It's more important to, I guess spelling's important, but it's more important to just get those ideas down, get it good. Because if you're worrying about spelling half the time, you may have only written a paragraph or a page, when if you've got about spelling, you could have written, 10 pages, a whole book by now.
And of course, if you're publishing your story, then you can check your spelling then using a dictionary or something like that, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Neve, now when you come on, I always like to get a book recommendation from you. What's your book recommendation today?
So I read this a while ago. It's called Scratchman by Tom Baker. And it's all about to do with fear, what you're afraid of, and scarecrows, which are actually quite scary. So what happens is it's about the Doctor, time travelling, that kind of stuff. And
the Doctor from Doctor Who?
Yes, with the fourth Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Harry Sullivan. And so they travel to this kind of island. And what happens is, when they go to this island, they have a lovely picnic and then playing frisbee. And then when they go, and this tractor comes, runs over their picnic. And later they find out that everyone on the island has disappeared and then some scarecrows chase them. It's really good. So the book I've got is split into 2 parts, book 1 and 2 in one book, and it's really good.
So you highly recommend Scratchman?
Yes.
Oh, wow, I'll have to check that out. I've read a couple of chapters on your recommendation, but it's one I really need to get through. Okay, my recommendation's back to the theme of writing, and it's How to Write Really Badly by Anne Fine. And it's all about a boy called Chester Howard, and he has to help someone called Joe with his project How to Write Neatly. But Joe is really bad at writing. It's full of mistakes and scribbles and crossing out. So he comes up with the idea that they could do a project how to write really badly, because Joe would be an expert on it. It's really funny, and it's got lots of great ideas on how to improve your writing, but it's told in a brilliant way. And Anne Fine's a brilliant writer anyway, so I highly recommend any of her work.
Yeah, I think I've heard of her.
Right, thank you, Neve, for coming along, and thank you for telling us all about Scratchman.
No problem.
Now it's the Right Now part of the programme. Right Now is a new feature where I set you a project for the month, a writing project. And today's one based on the writing idea, The Wish. What if you were granted a wish? Just one wish from a genie. What would you wish for? Be careful, things can go wrong. Write the story about what happens. Stuck? Try this story starter. The great green genie stood before me, his bald head shining in the sun and his red beard blowing in a breeze. I will grant you one wish. What will it be? He demanded. So what you should do is set aside 30 minutes each day. You write for 20 minutes. Then you check through your work and edit it for 10 minutes. Okay? Now, if you're finding all this difficult, what can you do to help yourself with your writing? Well, here's the sort of things I do. Always sit or work in the same place in your house. Always use the same writing tools. Always turn the television off. No talking, it distracts thinking. If you want to listen to music, always listen to the same piece of classical music or a piece of music which has no one singing, because that'll put you off. And always set yourself a goal. Count the number of words and try to beat that next time the following day. Maybe you can send your writing along to me and I can make it a feature of the programme. The address is worddoodler@virginmedia.com. Okay, it's almost the end of the show, and as usual we end on a poem or a story piece of writing. Today it's a poem and it's called Teacher Says. Teacher says, my writing is not very good, but I dream of slaying serpents with a dappled sword of light. Teacher says I should use more connectives, but I search the fathoms of Hades for the last souls of the unforgiven. Teacher says it would be better with subordinate clauses, but I dance with moonlight maidens on an ocean of stardust from Mars. Teacher says my work lacks imagination, but I journey home, sword broken and the beast of burden victorious. So it just remains for me to thank you for listening to my podcast. And just a quick reminder, all the poetry and the writing advice given today on this podcast is available on stephenfitzsimons.com. This programme was produced by Stephen Fitzsimons 2020, all rights reserved. Evil Clown music was from Espresso Music under licence from Shutterstock.